Hello everybody, welcome to What About the Game. Today I'm going to be talking about Star Fox Zero on the Wii U. Star Fox has always been one of Nintendo's most iconic franchises, pleasing the hardcore gamer with its intense arcade score attack gameplay and a memorable cast of characters, possibly the most quotable of any game characters ever. Saying that, it's been a while since our last real outing to the Lilac system, 10 years in fact, if you don't count the 64 remake on the 3DS. So how has Star Fox changed in the last decade? Well, not that much to be honest. If you wasn't aware of Star Fox Zero's pretense of being neither a sequel nor a prequel, you'd probably be forgiven for thinking it might be a highly enhanced remake of 64. The story is practically the same. Andross, a mad scientist banished to the planet Venom, has begun invading the Lilac system. The Cornerian army is struggling to cope, and so the Star Fox team are called in to save the day. Does Star Fox Zero tread on already walked on ground too much? Yes, there's no doubting they could have had the same great gameplay without needing full-on deja vu in parts. It's like they heard the fans' pleas of wanting Star Fox just like 64 and took it a little bit too literally. Personally, I would have liked a fresher take, visiting new locations, fighting a different threat, and a completely unique story. Unlike 64 however, your first playthrough of Star Fox Zero is extremely linear, and secret exits and alternate paths are almost entirely found after you've played through the game once, whereby you unlock upgrades to give you the ability to access them. This may disappoint some who enjoyed the branching paths of the original game in 64, but this wasn't really an issue for me. Once you complete the main storyline for the first time, you gain access to Arcade Mode, which allows you to play through the whole game, alternate paths included, like we all know and love. Naturally, as a Star Fox game, a playthrough of the game from the first planet of Corneria to the last Venom won't take long at all. My first playthrough crept barely over the 3-hour mark. No doubt this will ire some gamers out there who expected an expanded experience, but this is Star Fox. Can you imagine a drawn out 15-hour campaign? It just wouldn't work for an on-rails arcade shooter like this, which thrives on short but highly memorable levels. And most of the stages are quite memorable, even after only playing through them a couple of times each. They're not all hits, but it's a good ratio in favour of the better ones. Missions are more diverse than ever before. You have the standard on-rails section and the usual all-range mode, which takes an even bigger stage than previously. Then there are the stealth missions in which you need to avoid being detected, and more adventure-like levels where you need to use the walk transformation to roam inside enemy bases and flick switches. Yes, indeed, there are transformations in this game, and even a whole new vehicle. The R-Wing now transforms into the Walker, originally created for the ill-fated Star Fox 2. Transformation is as easy as a tap of the A button. The well-loved Landmaster also makes a reappearance, this time with the ability to transform into the Gravmaster, which allows you to fly around for a certain amount of time. A new entry for the series is the Gyro Wing, which is a helicopter of sorts that can lower a little robot who can go inside smaller spaces and also activate switches. Sadly, the Blue Marine doesn't make a reappearance, but the variety here is definitely enough, and the vehicles are all fun to use in their own way. One of the most controversial aspects of Star Fox Zero is in its new control method. Just the phrase motion controls is enough to make certain closed-minded gamers wince, and sadly Zero won't be given a fair chance by some. You control your ship in the usual way by using the left analog stick, but aiming is now via the gyro sensors on the gamepad. Even the gamepad screen itself is the cockpit view, rather than the third-person view of the TV screen, although this can be switched. Aiming feels awkward at first, and you'll constantly be losing your calibration if you always move your hands around like me, but a quick click of the left analog stick will readjust it. Then you have the problem of looking between two screens, one for flying and the other for aiming. Is it a problem? At first, yes, but they are easy to adjust to, especially during the on-rail sections. During more technical moments, like boss fights and in all-range mode, it takes longer to get used to them. Positioning yourself, dodging enemies, finding your targets and aiming is rather a lot to take in, especially when staring between two screens and constantly needing to readjust your gyro sensors, but it does come in time. One of the nicest options that I heartily recommend to those struggling is that you can choose to have the gyro aim only switched on when you're firing, otherwise it stays in its normal position and instantly clicks back into place once you finish firing. It's much easier to keep track of where you're aiming, although it does become a little more limited in the more difficult boss fights. To help you keep track of your opponent, you can hold the ZL button to lock onto them, which I especially recommend for the dogfights where your rivals are zooming about all over the place. Are the controls the be all and end all of Star Fox Zero? No, not at all. In fact, I rather enjoyed them after a few hours, and to be honest, it's going to feel rather limited if I go back and play the previous games in the series. It might seem like a difficult wall at first, but that wall is quite scalable. While a normal playthrough of Zero isn't particularly difficult, the challenge comes in repeated plays and mastering every stage. Each of the main stages have 5 golden medals, although alternate levels have less, to acquire through various methods. Some need to be found or triggered after doing certain things in a level, maybe saving an ally in a tight spot or flying through a special area. Then there's the most difficult one, getting the required amount of enemy takedowns. This is one that will require practice and just a bit of dexterity. Star Fox Zero is a very accessible game as it can include gamers of all skill levels. If you're young or inexperienced and fail a stage too many times, you can get access to the Invincible mode. As stated previously, the main game is for those with a decent skill level, and the after-game challenges are perfect for those who want a real test. Just about anybody can get enjoyment from this game. A cool aspect for those finding it difficult to balance the flying and shooting is playing the game in co-op. One player can use the gamepad to aim and shoot, while the other uses another controller to pilot the vehicle. It's actually rather fun, to be honest. Just make sure you play with somebody who vaguely knows what they're doing, for example, not my girlfriend. The biggest disappointment for me is the lack of an online multiplayer, something which I thought was nailed on to be part of the game. 4v4 online dogfights could and should have been amazing. It's genuinely surprising and a shame that it's not been implemented for Star Fox Zero. Many people have had problems with the graphics, but to be honest, I quite like them. They've played it safe for sure, and a more ambitious graphical style could have been awesome. The end product, however, is still nice, bright and clean, something which suits the game and the universe very well. The music is a little difficult to gauge, to be honest. Much of it is drowned out by the radio chatter from the gamepad, and we all know those animals like a comment or two once in a while. And of course the sound effects of the shooting and explosions. From what I can tell, the soundtrack is a mix of remixes of franchise staples with a few new tracks thrown in. You can't go wrong with a bona fide classic like the Star Wolf theme. Star Fox Zero is a weird combination of playing it a little too safe with the story, the mission structures and nods to the 64 game, whilst being incredibly ambitious with its control schemes. You can't help but wonder if it should have been the other way around. Star Fox Zero is not an essential Wii U game, but it's still a really good one that can proudly sit on anyone's game shelf. It's yet another unique game in the system's library and a welcome return for Fox McCloud and his team. The controversial control method does take a little getting used to, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes almost second nature. It follows the tropes of the previous outings way too much for its own good, and could possibly have benefited from stepping out of the comfort zone just a little more. Hopefully playing it safe in this department for the series' comeback will now give them a platform to do something more the next time around. Hopefully only a couple of years later this time, not a decade. Okay guys, if you've enjoyed this video then be sure to like and subscribe to help me out. You can read the full review of Star Fox Zero at whataboutthegame.com, that will really help me out a lot, and you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter if you want to. The links are below. Thanks guys, bye bye.